Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 73. This is AFLW Finals Week 1 episode. Week 10 has just wrapped up as of about 5-10 minutes ago. We're rushing this one out because I'm going away tomorrow and we need to get this video out before that happens. So, at time of recording, the official games and time slots have not been announced. We obviously know who is going to be playing each other next week in the first week of the finals. So we'll be going through that very shortly. As always, we're going to run through all of Week 10 matches first. So we'll look at each and every one of them. We'll have a look at the ladder, how it finished, the 10 teams that got eliminated. We'll then have a look at next week's matchups in Week 1 of the finals of the AFLW 2024. Before we jump into that, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how your team went this season. A few disappointing teams, a few teams that really surprised, and yeah, we'll jump straight into it from there. Whether you're on YouTube or Spotify, don't forget, we do 2 episodes every week, except for this week, there's only going to be 1. And then next Monday, we'll be going to a men's episode before the late week episode will be the AFLW going forward for the next few weeks until the end of the AFLW season. A little confusing, but it'll be right. I put it in the title every time, so you should know what you're watching. So let's jump into this weekend's action. We started with Geelong and Adelaide. This was on Friday night football down in Geelong. Geelong needed to win to have any chance on playing finals. Adelaide had already sewn up a spot, but this was to try and make sure that they finished a top 4. And it kind of went down to the wire. Geelong actually were leading at halftime by 14 points and looked kind of in control due to some poor kicking again. Adelaide's biggest issue this season all year long has been their kicking in front of goal. They were 1 goal 5 at halftime. They ended up 4 goals 8-32 to the Geelong Cats 4-4-28, who did not kick a goal after halftime, their last goal being 13 minutes into the second quarter. So Adelaide really pulled the clamps on them from that point on to wrestle back a bit of momentum and get the win, which seals them 4th spot on the ladder, gives them a battle with the top of the ladder Kangaroos this week in the finals. Won't be an easy one. Kangaroos are obviously flying, haven't lost a game this season, so it won't be an easy one for them. We have a look at some of the numbers behind this match. Disposal count was very similar, but the Crows did certainly dominate the inside 50s, 34-23. Clearances were pretty similar, not too much difference there. Contested footy slightly Adelaide's way, whereas uncontested footy slightly Geelong's way. Turnover game was pretty even. Adelaide slightly ahead that regard. 63 marks to 38 in favour of Adelaide, which goes against the uncontested numbers. Usually the team with the higher uncontested football wins the mark count, whereas this time, I know they only just lost the uncontested football, but they certainly dominated the mark. 63-38 is a big difference there. As we said, 12 scoring shots to 8, so Adelaide certainly had their chances. Didn't exactly take them all, but in the end, took enough. Tackle count, 65 Geelong, 51 Adelaide. Best players here. Only the one multiple goal scorer in this one, and it was Caitlin Gould for Adelaide. She kicked 3. 3 goals 3, so could have had an absolute field day, but still a solid performance from her in this one. We kind of expect that from her most weeks. She is put together a really good season, averaging 1.7 goals per game, which is even better than last year's 1.5. So really good performance from her all year long. Best players, look, to be honest, she's probably best on ground. She had 12 touches, 3 goals, 5 tackles, 5 hit-outs, 2 clearances. Did her role exceptionally well. As always, Ebony Marinoff was really good. 25 touches, 10 tackles, 6 clearances. Slightly down on her usual numbers, but that's only because of the fact that she usually dominates so much. For some reason, I'm talking really quickly, so we'll try and slow it back a bit. And Hatchard, 23 touches and a goal, was really good. Plenty of other ball winners for the Crows. Bedell, Newman were good. For the Cats, Nina Morrison, 25 touches, 10 tackles, 5 clearances, was good. Georgie Prespakis, 24 touches and a goal. Probably Geelong's best, arguably, as well as 10 clearances, which is a huge number. In the end, Geelong just weren't quite good enough all year long. They had a slow start to the year. Their percentage was huge. They finished the season with a 109.6%, which is better than the two teams directly above them. But in the end, they lost too many games early in the season and ended up only winning 4.5 games for the year. So you're not going to make finals winning 4.5 out of 11. It's just not going to happen. So a bit of a wasted season for them. But at the end of the day, they had a tough final round. Actually had a really tough season, to be honest. They had a pretty tough draw for most of the year. Adelaide was always going to be a tough one to finish the season, and the Crows got the job done. Game 2 was Melbourne-Collingwood. Melbourne needed to win to keep their final chances alive. They also would have needed the Bombers to lose, which, as you can see on the screen, the Bombers did not lose. Collingwood were bottom of the ladder. They needed to win to not finish last. They finished last. Having a look at this one, first quarter and a half it was pretty close. It was within a kick or about a kick. Then Melbourne just piled on 4 quick goals, a couple of them from free kicks. Some just good forward pressure. Got the job done for them there for a bit. Put them up by 30 points at half time, and then they just kind of extended it all the way through to end up winning 74. 11 goals, 8, 74 to 4-3, 27. A season to forget for Collingwood, and a season that could have been for Melbourne. They finished the season with 6 wins from 11 games, which typically would be enough usually to get you into finals. However, they would have needed another half a win, it turns out, because Essendon got through on 6.5 wins. But Melbourne's percentage was terrible anyway, so even if Essendon hadn't have drawn 2 weeks ago, Melbourne was still well below them on percentage. So even with this massive win to finish the year, they just had too many floggings early in the season when, they were playing some really good opposition, Melbourne, but they just were getting beaten comprehensively, and that's what's cost them in the end. The start to their year was not good enough for a finals team or a team that ends up making finals. So it ruined their season. It's an 11-game season. If you get a bad start, you're in a lot of trouble and you're going to struggle to make that up. It's not like the AFL men's where you've got 23 rounds to potentially turn that around. That's what the season is. That's what they've got to put up with. In the end, domination by Melbourne. 20 to 80 extra disposals, the way of the Demons. 13 extra inside 50s. Both teams' disposal efficiency was quite high compared to the regular. The forward efficiency from Melbourne was really, really good in this one. Plus 9 clearances, 1 contested footy, 1 uncontested football. Just pretty much won the football all around the ground, won the contest. Clearly the better team out of these two. There's no arguments probably from anyone really in terms of that. Multiple goal scorers for the Demons. Kate Hoare kicked 3, including 2 in about 2 minutes in the second quarter to really get the Demons going. And Alyssa Bannon kicked 2 as well. And then for Collingwood, Brittany Benici kicked 2 to start the second quarter off for the Pies, with a bit of momentum that maybe gave them a little bit of hope for just a few minutes. They weren't able to capitalise on that. If we look at the best players, it's mainly going to be Melbourne Demons here. Eliza McNamara, 32 touches, 4 clearances, 6 tackles, 527 metres gained, was probably best on ground. Olivia Purcell, 27 touches. Kate Hoare, as we said, 3 goals, 17 touches, was really good. A whole bunch of other Melbourne players, to be honest, they all played really good. For Collingwood, Brittany Benici, 20 touches, 2 goals was good. Ruby Schleicher had a bit of it. Sabrina Frederick had a good year in the ruck. Didn't have enough support around her at times, but in the end, Collingwood just not good enough in this one. Next up, straight after that, we went up to Sydney for the Sydney Swans versus the West Coast Eagles. It was a bit of a dead rubber. No other team could do much. I don't think Sydney could move from where they were on the ladder unless they lost and other teams won, which they didn't. So they finished 15th on the ladder. West Coast did drop one spot, but due to percentage, so they did lose by too much. But that doesn't matter in the end. 13th is fine. 13 doesn't make much difference in a season where they showed a lot of development. Sydney struggled with injuries, and this was a better performance than we've seen from them all year long, no doubt about it. Tight first quarter, dead level at quarter time. 16 points up Sydney at half time. West Coast kicked the first of the third quarter. It looked like it was going to be a bit of a close game going all the way home. Sydney kicked one right on the buzzer at three-quarter time to go up by 23 points. I was about to say 33, 23 points. And then that last quarter, they kicked 3 goals to 0-0. So ended up winning 10-14, 74 to 4-4, 28. Some poor kicking from Sydney. This could have been a absolute blowout. Look at some of the stats. Numbers disposal-wise, very similar for both teams. But the territory battle was absolutely dominated by Sydney here. Plus 17 inside 50s for the Swans. Clearances plus 5. Contested footy plus 17. West Coast did win uncontested football, but the turnover game was huge and probably the most important factor in this one. Sydney just 49 turnovers, which is quite low. Very low, actually. And Eagles 60, pretty much average, around about average, but that 49 from Sydney just was... They didn't give the ball up, and that's the difference here in this one. It meant that they controlled the territory really, really well. 74 to 66 tackles, reasonable numbers. 18 tackles inside 50 for the Swans, really, really good forward pressure. Multiple goal scorers in this one. Bella R. Smith for the Swans kicked 5 goals, 1 really good performance from her. And Rebecca Privatelli kicked 3 goals, 3 from 12 touches. So could have had a really good game. Still had a good game. Could have had an outstanding game. And Amy Franklin for the Eagles only had 4 disposals, but did manage 3 goals from those. Best players, I mean, it's hard to go past someone that kicked 5 goals. So Bella R. Smith probably gets best on ground, let's be honest. Laura Gardner was really good, 27 touches, 6 tackles. Tanya Kennedy, 18 touches, 13 tackles. You could obviously got to keep in mind Rebecca Privatelli, who had 12 touches, 3 goals. So they were really good for the Eagles to finish the season. Ella Roberts probably slightly down on her best. Still had 20 touches, 7 tackles. Still solid, but maybe not her best game. Same can be said for Charlotte Thomas, who had 23 touches. Sarah Larkey, really good in the ruck. 37 hitouts and 12 disposals. Isabella Lewis also had 24 touches. But in the end, West Coast showed a bit early season, faded away a bit, as we kind of thought might happen, whereas Sydney had a really rough season with injuries, just didn't put it together, and this was by far their best performance of the season, and it was way too little too late. Next up, we have the minor premiers North Melbourne. They went up against the Gold Coast Suns, who finished second bottom in the end, and so it's pretty much top versus almost bottom. There wasn't much hope for the Suns going into this one, and that was proven pretty much correct the whole way through. First quarter was kind of close. The Kangaroos kicked a couple late that put them up by 16 at quarter time, but from then on it was just one-way traffic. They were 27 points up at half time. extended it out to 51 points at three-quarter time and ended up winning by 63. So pretty comfortable most of the way through for the Kangaroos here. As you would expect, an absolute domination on the stats, and maybe even the biggest inside 50 differential you'll ever see. They were plus 60 disposals. They were plus 36 inside 50s. Yep, you heard me right. Plus 36. It was 15 to 51 inside 50s, which is just an absolute demolition. It was just big dog versus little dog in this one, and Gold Coast just couldn't even put up a fight. Disposal efficiency for Kangaroos was really high. 72.6 is, I mean, it doesn't sound that big when you compare it to men's game, but the women's game is a completely different game, much more contested. You usually see numbers in around the 60s. High 60s is usually pretty good, so 72.6 for the Roos was outstanding. Clearance-wise, Gold Coast actually put up a fight and won the clearances by 2. Even contested footy, Gold Coast won by 1. It was just that uncontested footy, plus 70. Turnover game, 44 to 61 in favour of Kangaroos. They just absolutely controlled the ball and the territory of this match, and pretty much gave Gold Coast no chance. Plus 40 marks for the Kangaroos. Only 59 to 47 tackles, so it was a low tackle game compared to a typical AFLW game. 17 tackles inside 50 for the Kangaroos was really good as well. Multiple goal scorers in this one. Alice O'Loughlin kicked 4 goals and Talia Randall kicked 2. Best players, obviously, best players on the ground are all going to be Kangaroos pretty much. Best player could go to any one of 4 players probably. Jasmine Garner, 24 touches and a goal was good, as well as 9 tackles. Ash Riddell, as always, 32 touches, got plenty of it, was really good with it as well, 426 metres gained. Mia King, dominant, as always, 25 touches. Chuck in the fact that Alice O'Loughlin kicked 4 goals, so any one of those could probably get best on ground, and probably all 3 votes are divvied up around those 4 players, sorry. Meanwhile, for Gold Coast, I mean, it's always Charlie Rowbottom, the one shining light they have in that midfield. 27 touches, 6 tackles, 7 clearances, but it's just doesn't have enough support. Claudia Whitford was pretty good as well, 25 touches, but just not enough support really around that midfield or the rest of the ground compared to the Kangaroos, who are a seasoned team, clearly a really, really talented team, and anyone's going to find them hard to beat, I reckon. Next up, final game of Saturday was Carlton Essendon. Essendon win this, they could play finals. If they had have lost, they would have missed finals. Melbourne would have jumped above them, but they won it 9-6-60 to 3-6-24. Not the most convincing win of all time, certainly in the first half, but they certainly kicked away in that second half. First quarter, they were actually down by 2 points. They managed to get the lead out to 9 points at half-time, but that third quarter was 3 goals 1 to 0-1, so 18-point swing there. And then the final quarter was another 2-goal to 1 quarter, so they clearly controlled that second half pretty much all the way along. This is one of the higher disposal counts you'll see from an AFLW game. Essendon had 324 touches. That's 102 more than the Blues had in this one. It's a really big number. 139 handballs for the Dons, plus 15 inside 50s. So they controlled this match. They obviously lost the hitouts like they do most weeks, 51 to 9. But clearances only lost it by 2. Contested footy won it really well, but that uncontested football plus 70 odd is an astronomical number. They also won the turnover game 59 to 67, so that was good for them. Tackle game, again, another game that wasn't the highest tackle count. There's been a few of them this weekend. 59 for the Blues, 50 for the Dons. Looking at the players, no multiple goal scorers in this game, so we'll jump straight into the best players. Probably best of field, Madison Gay for the Bombers, 33 touches, 10 marks. Did 744 metres gained as well, which is one of the better numbers of the AFLW season in terms of metres gained this season. Georgia Nanscowan, always in the best list. This, no exception, 25 touches and a goal was really good. As well as 9 clearances. Best Keeney was good, 20 touches. Plenty of other players. They've probably got 12 of the best 15 on the ground if you look at it. For the Blues, their best, Keely Shearer, 27 touches, was really good. Madeleine Guerin as well, 22 touches, 7 clearances. Just not enough support, in all honesty, for the Blues. They just didn't have a great season. There's no doubt about it. They finished quite low on the ladder. They finished 14th in the end. Only above Sydney, GWS, Gold Coast and Collingwood, who all had horrible seasons. So a disappointing season for Carlton. But the Dons, they make finals again. They finished, I think, 8th on the ladder last year. They lost the elimination final. So they'll be looking to go better. Can they do better than what the men's team has put together for 15 years and not won a final? Can they be the first for the Bombers to get there? We'll find out this weekend. It's not going to be easy. Freo over there, but should be a cracking game. Next up, we have... I have to change the screen. St Kilda, Brisbane. This was on earlier today. Yesterday when this video goes live. And not the most convincing win by Brisbane, who are a team that potentially has a chance at the finals. In the finals, they're top 4. They're probably clearly one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the competition this year. But it's now beginning to look a little bit more like the fact that Kangaroos first, Hawthorn second, and then Brisbane Adelaide are a little bit off the maybe. Hard to exactly tell. St Kilda started the season well. They won their first 3, but after that their season fell apart quite a lot. Brisbane wasted chances early, 4-5 to 1 straight in the first quarter. Didn't manage to kick a goal in the second quarter, the Lions, but they did kick away in that third quarter. They kicked 6 goals, 1 in that third quarter to just 1-2. So that really turned it around. They kicked 4 of those goals in about the space of 4 minutes of real lifetime, not just 4 minutes of playing time. So that early onslaught in the third quarter just sealed the game. They were pretty comfortable already, but that really just put the nail in the coffin. St Kilda did kick the last 3 goals of the game just to bring it back to a respectable margin, but I guess in the end Brisbane were clearly the better team and probably just wasted a few opportunities and took the pedal off the gas in that last quarter maybe, which makes the scoreline look a little bit closer than perhaps it was. Numbers wise, plus 50 touches for the Lions, plus 7 inside 50s, plus 14 clearances for the Lions as well is a really good number there. 36 to 22 with 11 to 6 in centre clearances. So that's a positive sign going into finals for the Lions, that their midfield work, their centre clearance work is really rolling. Contested footy went the way of the Lions. Uncontested footy went the way of the Lions. Turnover game actually didn't favour the Brisbane Lions in this one. St Kilda had 2 less turnovers. So a positive there for St Kilda in a game that there weren't too many. 23 inside 50 tackles to 7 is a huge difference there in favour of the Lions. Multiple goal scorers, there was 3 of them. 2 for Brisbane, Taylor Smith and Sophie Conway both kicked 2. Meanwhile, St Kilda, Jessie Wardlaw kicked 2 as well. Best players in this one. I think Sophie Conway probably best on ground, 27 touches, 2 goals, really good performance from her. Ali Anderson maybe in that conversation as well, 29 touches and a goal, 7 clearances. Kathy Spark had 14 tackles, worth noting. Plenty of other contributors in the Lions outfit. For St Kilda, their best. Probably Jessie Wardlaw, 19 touches, 2 goals. Jamie Lambert was good with 22 touches, 12 tackles. Australian Watson was good. They had a couple others that popped up here and there, but in the end, Brisbane were just the better team in this one. Next game up was Richmond Hawthorn. In what was an important game for both teams in a way. Hawthorn playing for the McClellan Trophy and $1 million for the Hawthorn Football Club. And Richmond trying to play for a home final, which they lost. So therefore they get an away final to start their finals campaign. Their season dropped away a bit there. They were at one point looking like a genuine chance for a top four. And yeah, they didn't finish the season as well as they would have liked. In all honesty, 3 goals, 5-23 for the Tigers, 6-10, 46 for the Hawks. So some wasted opportunities for Hawthorn. Halfway through the second quarter, Richmond were actually winning this one. It was a goalless first quarter. Richmond kicked the first one, which was about halfway through the second quarter. Hawthorn took the lead just before half-time. And it was kind of back and forward a little bit on the scoreline in the game. All the way through, Richmond actually hit the front with halfway through the last quarter. Well, not even halfway. A few minutes into the last quarter. Hawthorn got the lead back through Michaela Williamson early in the last quarter. Richmond then missed a shot through Monique Conti. And then from then on, from the 14-minute mark through to the end of the game, Hawthorn kicked the last 3 and kind of just blew them out of the water a little bit after it being within a point halfway through the last quarter. So a really strong finish for Hawthorn. Sealed this game, but scoreboard-wise was very close. I think Hawthorn was the better team all day overall, but Richmond hung in there, but just in the end, the class of Hawthorn prevailed. Plus 39 disposals for the Hawks, plus 11. Inside 50s, they controlled the game. They controlled it out of the middle. 29-22 clearances, plus 32 uncontested, plus 16 contested. Tackle-wise, 77 for Richmond was good, 65 for Hawthorn. Both teams tackled really well inside 50. Good forward pressure from both teams, which is encouraging going into finals. A look at some of the best players. Only one multiple goal scorer in this one, and it was Anne McDonough, who had two goals from 9 touches. Best players today, starting with the Hawks. Share it around, really. There's a lot of players that all had similar sort of numbers in terms of disposals and stats. Greta Bodie, 23 touches. Eliza West, 24 touches and 8 clearances. Tamara Smith had 18 touches, 6 tackles, was good. Gilroy, Ashmore both kicked 2 goals. Aine McDonough, as we said, kicked 2 for the Tigers. It was the same names as always. Mainly Monique Conti, 26 touches, 6 tackles, 2 clearances, 2 goal assists. Really good performance from her. Poppy Kelly was good in the ruck with 25 hit-outs. Grace Egan got plenty of it, 19 touches. Kate Dempsey was okay. But in the end, Hawthorn just had that slight edge in class across the field. And, they got the win because of that. Next up, we have Port Adelaide GWS. This was a weird game. It was a cracking game, but this was a weird game. GWS, who end the season 3rd bottom on the ladder. Port Adelaide, who have a home final in week 1 of the finals. And it went down to the wire. Port Adelaide won at 7-1-43 to GWS 6-6-42. And at no point through this game did I think that Port Adelaide were going to win this. First quarter was kind of close, but GWS still went in, plus 7 points at quarter time. They extended that out to be 9-point leaders at halftime. Before third quarter, they kicked the first goal of the third quarter. Looked like, I won't say they were home at that stage, but you've got to think they were close. They were 36-19, so plus 17, almost double their score at the 11-minute mark of that quarter, of the third quarter, before Port Adelaide kicked the next couple to get them back in it. GWS got one back to extend it again, but then Port Adelaide kicked 2 goals in the last 5 to 10 minutes, including a marking goal from Gemma Houghton in the last minute to seal the win by 1 point. I mean, they were playing finals anyway. It just would have been an away game against Fremantle, whereas now they have a home final against Richmond. So that really helps their belief and their chances in week 1 of the finals. I think they're going in on like six wins in a row, something ridiculous. They have turned their season around completely. Their start of the season wasn't bad. They just had a bit of a tough run. And this was a get out of jail. No doubt about it. They didn't look the winners at any point of this game. They had less inside 50s. They had 40 less touches. Their disposal efficiency was terrible. We were talking about Kangaroos earlier at 72%. Port Adelaide today went at 52%, which is a low. That is a very low. Clearances went the way of GWS. Contested footy did go the way of Port Adelaide, but uncontested was clearly controlled by GWS. Not a great sign for Port Adelaide going into the finals, except for the fact that they managed to win it anyway, so there's that. 82 tackles to 107 for GWS. Really good number for them. Good finish to their season. Disappointing for GWS in all honesty. A win wouldn't have moved them up on the ladder, so a win would have been really good for this young team. I've kind of been on the Port Adelaide bandwagon a little bit this year, so I'm quite happy that they won. However, it would have been nice to see GWS get this win. They played really well, and they just fell short. Just didn't close out the game. That's kind of been their story a few times this year, so a little bit of development. Maybe next year we'll see those sort of mistakes not be a part of the GWS outfit. Looking at the stats in this one, only multiple goal scorer was Caitlin Wendland with 2 goals for Port Adelaide. Best players, starting with the winning team, Port Adelaide. Where are we? Nobody got many disposals, in all honesty, for Port Adelaide. Maria Maloney had 17, was their leading disposal getter. Also had 14 tackles though, so probably their best. Outside of that, there's not many that got much of the ball. Olivia Levicki was good in the ruck. Goody has been good as a first-year player. 13 touches was good here. Wendland, as we said, kicked 2 goals. Hard to find dominant players from Port Adelaide, though, because this game was controlled by GWS. And probably had the best players on the ground. Rebecca Beeson, 26 touches, 14 tackles, a goal, and 9 clearances, was outstanding, and I think best on ground. Zali Goldsworthy, 16 touches, 12 tackles, and a goal. Alicia O'Dowd has been really good in the ruck in her first season. No doubt about that. 20 touches, 20 hit-outs, 5 tackles, 4 clearances, and a goal. So, as well as 2 goal assists. Don't forget about that. Really good performance from her in her final game of the year. 22 touches for Alice Parker as well. I think GWS, with a better team in this, on the day, they just didn't get the points. And that is disappointing for them. Final game of the weekend was Fremantle Bulldogs. It's just wrapped up just before I started recording this podcast. I've lost the plot. Fremantle got the points. 4 goals 11, 35 to 3-3, 21. Wowee. 4-11. Would have been costly against a decent team. No offence to the Bulldogs. They've been okay throughout the year at times, but they've been a class below most other teams. Bulldogs kicked 2 goals in the first quarter to lead by 10 points at quarter time, and looked really good, but that second quarter they didn't manage to score, whereas Freo kicked 2 goals 4, and then it wasn't a high scoring game, so they were always in it I guess. They're only 5 points down at three-quarter time. But once again, didn't manage to score in that last quarter. So they didn't score at all to one end, whereas they scored 21 points going the other way. But Fremantle should have won by more. 4 goals 11 is just not what they'll be wanting to do in finals. They won't get away with that in finals, you wouldn't think. Even though they did control this game, plus 40 disposals, plus 23 inside 50s. Bulldogs only had 16 inside 50s for the whole match. So that was really low. Clearances 40-21 in favour of Fremantle. They controlled that area. They controlled contested footy. They controlled uncontested footy. Both teams only had 49 turnovers as well. It was a slow game, slow contested game between the arcs, basically. Tackle count was 63-82 in favour of the Dogs. Best players in this one. Well, no multiple goal scorers for starters, so we will jump straight into the best players. Starting with the Dockers, and I think the 3 votes, in all likelihood, there's probably 2 players that technically could get it. I think it has to go to Mimstrom though. 30 touches, 30 hitouts, 0 3, so could have been really good. 8 clearances, 7 tackles. Did it all. The only competitor for best on ground, I guess, was Aislinn McCarthy. 29 touches, 8 clearances, 469 metres gained, was really good. Outside of that, I mean, there's probably a handful of players that are all in that next level for Fremantle, but those 2 are the standouts. For the Doggies, 20 touches and a goal for Isabel Pritchard, 19 touches for Fitzgerald, 17 for Georgie Asathis, as well as 10 tackles, 378 metres gained. Probably Bulldogs' best, arguably her or Pritchard. Isabella Grant was good, and yeah, that's the Doggies. That was their season done. A season of mainly disappointments for them, but they did finish the season strongly, which nearly... I mean, they played a few good games. They did. They weren't outstanding. They finished... where did they finish? Sorry. 12th on the ladder. So, not bad. Especially when you look at their first couple games. They looked like they were going to finish about 15th. 15th? 18th. Probably not winning a game. So that is that. We'll jump in and have a look at how my tips went this weekend. And they went pretty well. 8 out of 9. We went well. We got Adelaide. We got Melbourne. We got West Coast wrong. They let us down. I had a feeling Sydney might knock them off just because of the fact that it was a nothing game. But still a little bit disappointed I got that one wrong. And then we got North, Bombers, Brisbane, Hawthorn, Port, Freo, all right, even if Port was only just. So 8 out of 9, 70 out of 98 for the season. I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty good numbers. Pretty good numbers, if I do say so myself. Not bad, not bad, not bad. So yeah, that's that weekend. This weekend coming up, oh, sorry, didn't need to see that, is officially announced. I don't have a graphic for it because it's only just been announced. But we can look at the games, and I'll put up my tips while we're at it. That is not the order that the games will be in, just so you know. But first up, Friday night football is going to be North Melbourne, Adelaide at Icon Park. Friday night football, 7:15 kickoff. And it's North Melbourne versus Adelaide. Top of the ladder versus fourth. It's a qualifying final. Winner goes through to a prelim. Loser will be hosting a semi-final the week after, which will be against Fremantle or Essendon. So, big game Friday night. I've tipped, as you can see on the screen, North Melbourne by 10 points. I think they're the best team in the competition. I think Adelaide will stick around in this. They tend to stick around in games. Their main issue has been their kicking at goal. I genuinely think at their best they can take it to North Melbourne. That they need to tidy up their kicking at goal because that has been an absolute blight on their game this year. But North Melbourne should be too strong, in all honesty. Next game is Saturday night football. So no Saturday afternoon games. we go straight to Saturday night, which interesting strategy, but it is a decision that's been made. I'm sure there's a reason for it. And that Saturday night game is a Fremantle-Essendon over at Fremantle Oval, 7 p.m. Australian kickoff time. So is that like 4 p.m. WA time? So not really a night game. Night game in Victoria, but it's played over in the West, which makes even less sense. But anyway, we're not here to make past judgments on decisions made. I'm sure there is a reason for what they've done. So it's Fremantle Essendon. As you can see, I went Fremantle by 20. I'm not confident in that. I think Fremantle are the better team out of these two. Plus they're at home. So I think they should win. But the Bombers have been showing some really good fight this year. Their season looked done after 3 or 4 weeks. They lost Bonnie Toogood. She's obviously back now. They lost the first few games, or most of their first few games, and just didn't really look like they were a competitive team. But they've really turned it around. They've done really, really well in that regard. This might be tough, but I mean, for the Bombers faithful, I'd love to see them get this win. Their first finals win as an AFLW team, and also their first win as a club in finals for almost a millennium. Not actually, that's an exaggeration. Sorry, Bombers fan. Next up is the second qualifying final. Hawthorn v Brisbane. This will be at Icon Park. Sunday afternoon, 1:05 kickoff. Obviously, the winner does go straight through to a prelim. The loser will be playing the winner of Port Adelaide or Richmond in a semi-final. Interestingly, the way the odds have come out, Brisbane are actually favourites in this, so the team that finished third are going in as favourites over Hawthorn, who finished second on the ladder. As you can see, I also have tipped Brisbane by 5 points. Not confidently. I think Hawthorn have been doing everything right. They've been smashing teams. Technically, their offense is like second best in the AFL. Their defense is... No, their offense is best. Defense is second best, or something ridiculous like that. They have had an easier season, in all honesty, than Brisbane and North Melbourne and probably Adelaide. So... there's that, but at the end of the day, they've been beating teams that they need to beat. They lost one game early in the year. Since then, they haven't put a foot wrong. So it's hard to go against them. But Brisbane, I mean, they won the premiership last year. They're basically the exact same team. They keep just doing things right, and it's hard to see this not being a cracking game. It should be an absolute ripper. So Sunday afternoon at Icon Park, if you're in Victoria on Sunday, head down and check that one out. It should be a good one. Straight after that is the other elimination final. Port Adelaide hosting Richmond. Interestingly, the odds at the moment have Richmond as favourites. So the away team, the team in 7th, favourites over Port Adelaide. It's another game that you just don't know exactly how it's going to go. You think Port Adelaide probably are the better informed team across a big range of weeks, but they weren't convincing today. I mean, Richmond played Hawthorn and lost, but losing to Hawthorn and almost losing to GWS are two different things at the moment in this competition. I think Richmond have the experience, probably the class. Port Adelaide have a bit of excitement about them though, so I wouldn't rule them out. As you can see, I've tipped Richmond by 10 points. These are probably the two teams that I've been going for most of this season, in all honesty, and they meet each other in an elimination final, which is a bit disappointing. It's been those two in Adelaide, the three teams that I've been trying to get over the line, outside of my own club, who have been terrible. So I'll be happy either way, but I'm tipping Richmond, and I think they should win, in all honesty. So that's this weekend's football coming up. Just for future reference, this is a kind of quicker episode in terms of not as much prep work in next week's games, just because I'm going away, didn't have time to go into all the matchups. Next week's episode, before the semi-finals, we'll have a lot more in-depth look at the games coming up and also the games played on the weekend. So there will be a lot more of that next week for the AFL episode. It'll be episode 75 because 74 will be AFL men's. So there's that. That's my tips. That's that. We'll have a quick look at how the ladder finished. And then that will be a wrap on episode 73. So we'll start at the top. Obviously, we know who finished top. Kangaroos, clearly the best team in the competition. Didn't lose a game all season. 10 wins and a draw. Really, really good season from them. Second on the ladder, half a game behind them, so just one loss, 10 wins, was Hawthorn. Really good performance from them. Probably had the easiest run of the top 4 teams, at least, but that's okay. Someone had to. Brisbane, they finished third on the ladder, 9 wins, 2 losses. Solid season from them. They'll be disappointed that they lost a few weeks ago against Geelong, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't have probably mattered. It would have come down to percentage, which their percentage is lower than Hawthorn's anyway. Adelaide, they finished 4th on the ladder, 8 wins, 3 losses. 2 of those losses in the last 5 weeks. So a little bit of a disappointing end to their season, but in the end, finished top 4 due to percentage, really high percentage compared to the teams below them. 5th on the ladder, same amount of wins and losses, was Fremantle. Their percentage, though, was 36 behind that of the Crows. 90 less points scored, 12 extra points conceded. So there's that. Next up was a Port Adelaide, who came home with a flurry. I think they won their last 7 games in a row, now that I think about it. I think they might have lost their first 4 and then won their last 7, which is an incredible season. Put that up there with Hawthorn's run in the men's season, really. Looked dead and buried after 4 weeks, but to come back and finish 6th on the ladder, only a game outside of top 4 finish, is really good achievement. 7 wins, 4 losses for them. Richmond fell apart in those last few weeks, no doubt about it. They finished with 6 wins, 4 losses and a draw, and 7th on the ladder. They didn't win a game in the last 3 weeks. They went loss, draw, loss. Disappointing run home, no doubt about it. Can they bounce back and turn that around? I think so. They haven't been the easiest of games the last 3 weeks. They lost to Melbourne, drew with Essendon, and then lost to Hawthorn. So, they're teams that are there or thereabouts. So it's not like they were terrible losses. But at the end of the day, not the best form going into finals. Essendon finished 8th on the ladder, 6 wins, 4 losses and a draw. So end up same amount of points as Richmond, just down on them on percentage by quite a fair way, to be honest. But they finished the season really well. Outside of their rounds 9 and 10, where they lost and then drew, their second half of the season was outstanding. Melbourne miss out on finals with 6 wins, 5 losses. Finished the season full of steam. They'll be ruining their 6-point loss to Hawthorn last weekend, which effectively cost them a spot in finals. They would have finished 7th on the ladder, had they won that game. So they'll be kicking themselves for that one loss, but then again, they're probably more so kicking themselves for their start of the season where they just couldn't get over the line against anyone. Next up is Geelong, a fair way back in 10th. They finished with 4 wins, 6 losses and a draw, so a game and a half behind Melbourne in 9th. Early season struggled. Second half of the year, much better, but just gave everyone too much of a head start. 11th, St Kilda, 4 wins, 7 losses. They won their first 3, they lost a couple, then they won one, and then they lost their last 4. So, not a great season for them in the end. Disappointing after winning their first 3, but it's a development year for them. The Bulldogs, 4 wins, 7 losses as well. Patches of their season looked horrible. They looked the worst team in the competition at multiple stages this year. But then other points, they looked really good. So they put together twice back-to-back wins, including beating Carlton and St Kilda in 2 of their last 3 games. There are other couple wins. One was against Collingwood. I can't remember who the other one was against. But still, maybe West Coast, maybe not. I can't remember. Either way, they finished the year with 4 wins, finished 12th on the ladder. West Coast finished 13th, same amount of wins and losses, 4 and 7. They did lose their last 5. So they were in a spot that was potentially pushing towards finals. I don't think we all thought they were ready for finals, but disappointing end to their season. But at the end of the day, they weren't expected to do much this year, so 4 wins is probably still at least as many as anybody would have been picking them to win. Probably more than most people would have expected. Carlton, 14th on the ladder, 4 wins, 7 losses as well. Second worst percentage in the AFL. They won 2 of their last 4 games. One of those, surprisingly, against Fremantle, over in the West by 4 points, and the other one against Collingwood by 4 points. So nothing outstanding there to read. I mean, the Fremantle win is an incredible win. I don't know where that came from, but tough season for them. Was always probably going to be tough, but they never really got going. 15th on the ladder is Sydney, who, outside of their win yesterday against West Coast, haven't shown much since round 1. So they won their first game, they won their last game, and they only won 1 more in between. So you take out their bookends, and it's a 1-win season. So could have been a lot different had they not had injuries and such, but still a pretty rough season for them. 16th was GWS, 1 win, 9 losses, and a draw. Haven't won for a while. Their 1 win and their draw were pretty early season. Tough look for them. Tough season. I mean, they're a young team. They were always going to find it difficult. Gold Coast Suns are next. Same record, 1 win, 9 losses, and a draw. Finished 17th on the ladder. A couple really good players, but just no depth in their lineup at all. Collingwood finished 18th with just 1 win and 10 losses. That 1 win coming about mid-season against Gold Coast. So really disappointing season for the Pies, who, I mean, they weren't probably expected to make finals, but they certainly weren't expected to win 1 game for the year. So they'll be really disappointed with that. They've got some class players, but they had some injuries, but they just never could put any games together. And in the end, their season looks really, really bad. Yeah, they lost a couple games close, but it's still a very disappointing end to the Magpies season. That is AFLW Finals Week 1 intro / Week 10 wrap up. Thanks for tuning in. As we mentioned, there'll be no more episodes of the podcast this week. Usually we do 2 a week, but there's just the 1 this week. The next episode of the podcast will go live next Monday, so 7 days from now, which we'll be looking at AFL men's season. It's probably going to be I don't know what it's going to be actually, but it'll be AFL men's anyway. Next AFLW episode will be episode 75, coming out probably either Thursday or Friday of next week before week 2 of the finals for the AFLW. So tune in for that. Tune in for the AFL men's episode. Check out the YouTube channel if you're not there already. Subscribe. Check out all the videos. Look at all the socials. All Aussie Rules everywhere. Thanks for tuning in. This is All Aussie Rules. This is episode 73. I'll catch you on the next one.